Emeka, brother, you are not my brother. Everything I did it because I was afraid. Afraid it would always be you and never me. Not because I fought for it, and now it will always be me. And not throw what I started. Nothing worth keeping.
Listen, let me tell you a story about a man called Kola. Kola was the kind of man that walked into a room and the room rearranged itself. Sharp, polished. The kind of counselor who could read a king's mood before the king himself understood what he was feeling. In the palace of Abeya, men twice his age leaned in when Kola spoke. The king trusted him. The court respected him. Even his enemies watched him with the particular attention you give to something you know is dangerous. And he had one friend. One man who had carried his name into rooms that would have otherwise stayed closed to him. One man whose loyalty had been building Kola's future with bare hands and asking nothing in return. That man's name was Emeka. But by the time I finish this story, your mouth will go quiet. Because this same Kola walked himself into a pit so deep, it could only have been built by the weight of his own ambition. And the throne he destroyed his only brother to reach, it chose the man he betrayed. But wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. In the kingdom of Abeya, Kola and Emeka had arrived as young men with nothing but their sharpness. For 17 years they sat side by side at the king's table. That one empty seat between Emeka and the throne was where everything started. One Tuesday morning, Kola walked into the throne room alone, with a scroll, with a smile, with enough decorated lies to bury a man who had never once looked over his shoulder. The king believed every word. My people. This is where the story starts. Emeka did not collapse. And that, my people, was what drove Kola mad. He had expected tears. He had expected a man broken at the knees, crawling out of the palace with his reputation trailing behind him like a torn wrapper. Instead, Emeka walked out of the throne room with his chin level, his eyes forward, and his hands still at his sides, like a man who knew something nobody else in that courtyard knew yet. But outside those palace walls, the world was not kind. The same mouths that used to call Emeka's name with respect now lowered their voices when he passed. Neighbors who had eaten from his pot found reasons to look away. Men who had borrowed his counsel like it was water now acted as though they had never been thirsty. The market women whispered. The palace guards smirked. Even children who understand nothing somehow absorbed the village's verdict and kept their distance. And Kola made sure the story kept moving. Every gathering, every elder meeting, every quiet conversation near the palace gates, Kola was there, adding details, shaking his head with practiced sadness, saying things like, I tried to protect him, you know. I tried, as if the betrayal had cost him something. Emeka heard all of it. He heard it, and he kept waking up before sunrise. He kept greeting people who did not greet him back. He kept living as if the story being told about him was not his story at all. My people, that kind of dignity is not ordinary. That is a man who knows that the ground beneath a lie is always shifting. He was simply waiting for it to move. It was on a Wednesday, market day in Abeya, when the old woman collapsed near the eastern gate. Not a small stumble, a full collapse. Her basket of yams scattering across the ground, and her body folding into the dust like something that had been holding itself up for too long and finally gave up. People walked around her. Some looked. One man even stepped over her yams without stopping. The market did not slow down for 1 second. Emeka was passing through. He had gone to the market not because he had money to spend. Those days were lean, but because a man must keep moving, or the shame others place on him begins to feel like his own. He saw the woman the same moment everyone else chose not to see her. He stopped. He knelt in the dust right there, in front of everyone. A man whose name was currently being used as a warning in the palace, and he lifted the old woman's head gently and called for water. He gathered her yams back into her basket one by one. He sat with her until her breathing steadied, and he used the last coins he had that day to buy her a small bowl of pepper soup from a nearby stall. The old woman looked at him for a long time. She said, "You do not know me." Emeka said, "You needed help. That is enough." She smiled. "And my people." It was not the smile of a hungry old woman who had just been shown mercy. It was something else. Something behind the eyes. The kind of smile that knows more than it is saying. She told him her name. He did not yet understand why it mattered. 7 days after that Wednesday at the market gate, a stranger arrived at the palace of Abeya. Not through the main entrance where traders and petitioners lined up from dawn. Through the side path. The one that only the king's most trusted visitors knew about. The one that whispered, "I have been here before." The stranger was an old woman. My people. You already know, she was received by the king himself, which was the first thing that made the court go still. The king did not rise for visitors. He rose for this one. He called her by a name that nobody in the courtroom had ever heard him say out loud. A name that made the eldest advisor press his hand flat against his chest, as if steadying his own heartbeat. She was not an ordinary woman. She was the keeper of the river oracle. A woman whose word had shaped 3 kings before Adderwale. A woman the palace had not seen in 11 years. And she had come to speak about Emeka. She told the king what she had seen with her own eyes at the eastern market gate. Not just the kindness, my people. She told him what she had seen in Emeka's spirit. She told the king that a man who kneels in the dust for a stranger while his own name is being buried is not a man who betrays kingdoms. She told him to look again at what he had been told, and by whom. The king sat with that for a long time. Then he called for his most trusted investigator and gave him 3 days. My people. 3 days was all it took for everything Kola had built with his lies to begin falling like a wall that was never meant to stand. On the 3rd day, the investigator returned. He walked into the throne room and he knelt and he placed every piece of evidence before the king without saying a single dramatic word. He did not need to. The documents spoke. The witnesses spoke. The contradictions in Kola's original report spoke loudest of all. The king sat very still for a moment that felt longer than it was. And then he said, "Bring them both, my people." Picture that courtyard. The same courtyard where Kola had stood weeks earlier with his chest full of confidence and his mouth full of poison. Now he was standing in it again. But this time, Emeka was beside him. And this time, the king's face was different. Kola saw it immediately. That face. He tried to speak first, the way guilty men always do, rushing to fill the silence before truth can sit down comfortably. But the king raised one hand, and Kola's mouth closed like a door. The king spoke for a long time. He did not shout. He did not curse. He simply laid out what had been found, piece by piece, the way you lay out a body for burial, calmly, with finality. And when he was done, the courtyard was so quiet you could hear the birds deciding whether to stay or leave. Kola's knees found the ground before his mind gave them permission. Emeka did not smile. He did not look at Kola with satisfaction or with anger. He simply stood there the way he had always stood, straight, quiet. like a man who had never stopped being exactly who he was, even when the world was busy believing otherwise. That stillness, my people, that stillness was louder than any punishment. Kola was removed from the palace that same evening. No ceremony, no farewell. Just a man walking out of the gates he had tried to own, carrying nothing but the consequences of his own calculation. The position he had stolen was dissolved. The king did not give it to anyone immediately. He let the seat sit empty for a while, as if to say, "This is what ambition without integrity looks like. A vacancy, a hole where something good used to be." Emeka was restored, not loudly. The king did not make a festival of it. He simply called Emeka back, looked at him for a long moment and said, "I should have known better." And Emeka, my people, do you know what he said back? He said, "My king, so should we all." No bitterness, no demand for additional punishment, no speech about what he had suffered, just 5 quiet words that contained more wisdom than most men find in a lifetime. The village that had whispered against him went silent in a different way now, the silence of people rearranging what they thought they knew. Some came to apologize. Emeka received every apology with the same level eyes he had carried through the whole storm. My people, this is what I want you to carry with you today. Loyalty is not weakness. Patience is not ignorance. And the man who is busy destroying you is also busy building the very thing that will destroy him. You do not have to fight every battle with your hands. Some battles, you win simply by remaining who you are. The throne always finds its rightful owner. Share this story with someone who is being tested right now. They need to hear it more than you know.